Who's been to Boston? How do you get there? I just forgot. I'm only a New Yorker, so I don't know how to get to Boston. Take 95, make a right. Anyway, that's Boston. We're going to try to condense Boston, Portland, and Bar Harbor into this. By the way, if you have questions in the middle, feel free. My background's radio and TV, so I'm used to people, while I'm talking, asking questions and all that. So there are no formal rules here. If you have something to say, just say it. And if I feel like it, I'll say hello. Anyway, so we're going to Boston. And one of the things about Boston is my background is in politics, sports, and business reporting. And a couple of years ago, Boston made an attempt at landing the 2024 Summer Olympics. And one of the things that they tried to sell with Boston was, Boston, we're a historic center, we're a business center, we're an important hub in the Northeast. It is the capital of New England, although it's the capital of Boston, but everything from Fairfield County, Connecticut, east, north, south from Maine, and north for Rhode Island actually flows into Boston, except for that little piece of Fairfield where we New Yorkers call our own. Anyway, so Boston was founded about 1630 by a guy by the name of John Winthrop. It gets its name from an English village. And of course, you know about a lot of things that happened there. The American Revolution may have started there, the Boston Tea Party. And I'll talk about the Boston Tea Party. And tomorrow you could see a replica of one of the ships in the harbor if you walk into town, which they now sell as Come and See the Boston Tea Party. And of course, the shot heard around the world, which must have been a really lively shot if it was heard around the world. Can you imagine in Bombay? I just heard that shot. Anyway, the Freedom Trail. Thank you, Captain Alex, for talking about that. If you want to take the Freedom Trail, that was a postcard from about 30 years ago. And it looks roughly the same, except when you go down to the east side of Boston, there are a lot of buildings now. The North Church is at 193 Salem Street. It's part of the Freedom Trail, one if by land, two if by sea. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. How many of you in school had to memorize that poem, Paul Revere? How many of you really didn't want to do it? I wonder if they still do it or not, but no, they don't? Who are teachers here? You don't do it. By the way, before I go on, the last two celebrity cruises I've done, I've had former high school teachers from Spring Valley High School in New York. Anybody from Spring Valley? Haverstraw. Okay, but you weren't my teacher. Good. I got graded by one of them. Well, it was B+. You could have done better. Okay, the Freedom Trail is a 2.5-mile walk, definitely walkable through downtown, passes through 16 locations. It's a red line, and you could go from the Boston Common to Charleston and see the USS Constitution. Along the trail, there are ground markers, graveyards, notable churches, and you will see guys dressed in red coats as well, walking around that part of Boston. By the way, where was the first subway in the United States? What do you think? New York? No, Boston. It still works. It's in the Commons. So if you want to go on the subway ride, take the first subway ever in the United States, it's in the Commons. And there's the USS Constitution, and down there, I was once 26 years old. Once. But that looks the same. Now, the Freedom Trail, if you're going, it's the old South Meeting House, old State House, the Paul Revere House, which is actually in the North End, near the restaurant I'm going to eat in tomorrow, Mama Anna's, but I'm going there tomorrow. In 1953, somebody said, hey, why don't we actually make this an historic trail? I mean, we got all this stuff separated here, so let's just paint a red line so you could follow it. And by 1953, there were 40,000 people who were walking the trail annually. The Boston Commons, which is next to the State House, the Boston Commons is the oldest park in the United States. It opened in 1634. And again, I was once 26 years old. And when you're 26 years old, you do things like stand next to signs that say, keep off the grass. Hey, I've done worse things in my life. The commons, besides trying to keep you off the grass, the colonial militia for the revolution was there. The British Redcoats started an 8-year encampment there. George Washington, who was everywhere. I was in Barbados last year on one of these ships. Do you know that George Washington slept in Barbados? I'm going back to Barbados in about 6 weeks. I got to look at the place where he slept, because I go to all these places where George Washington slept here. John Adams, General Lafayette all came to celebrate the independence. In the 1860s, Civil War recruitment, anti-slavery meetings during World War I, a victory garden sprouted up. And for World War II, the Common gave most of its iron fencing away for scrap metal. It's a major gathering spot, still is to this day. Charles Lindbergh promoted aviation there, anti-Vietnam protests, civil rights rallies led there, including one by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Larry McCoy, who used to be my at CBS Radio, who was my boss, said it's always Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as opposed to his father, who was senior. And in 1976, Pope John Paul II celebrated Mass there. You going to go there tomorrow? It's on the National Historic Registry. It's the State House. It's next to the Commons. And if you happen to latch on to one of these guys who give tours, and they have the tours, and you just stand and listen. You don't have to stay for the tour, but listen to some of the stories about the State House. They're quite comical as well, and I don't have enough time